Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, brought to you by the Draft Professor. Joined by Stephen Taylor. Guys, it's great to see you on a Thursday night. We got a pretty good group of players to cover. But Steve, what's going on in your football world right now?
Yeah, just a couple of, it's a mix of excitement and sadness, right? Bittersweet, I guess, is a good word, because we're really putting together our boards and starting to get a even better feel for these guys. Some coming from the bottom of the ranks, other guys that we were high on in summer scouting are either living up to the belief and conviction or not. But at the same time, we're nearing the end. Thanksgiving's a week away and the season's coming to a close, but I think I'm very excited about the NFL game tonight between your Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans, because the three of us are going to contribute just as much to the stat line as Keon Coleman. I mean, this is exciting stuff, Anyway, what's going on with you, Cha?
Well, I'm the proud, I'm going to say governor, shout out the NBA, of Tyrell Shavers in about every fantasy league that I am in. So that's working out nicely for me. I was on him early too. I had him in the preseason. So that's kind of fun for me. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with that situation. It sounds a little sketchy, but I think Keon Coleman will be fine. He's only like 22, isn't he? Other than that, 9 and 2.
Elijah Surratt and Keon Coleman will be the same age.
Nice.
I was in a Bills draft chat. I posted a mock with Surratt in it. And they're like, I don't know about that round one. He's the same age as Keon Coleman. We should draft a younger player.
Yeah, I think age is a little bit overrated when it comes to football personally. But, everyone has their own beliefs. And obviously you can have them, they will have a longer career themselves. That doesn't mean they're going to have it on the team that you're drafting. You know what I mean? So I don't think that necessarily matters for, that team you're drafting, unless you're planning on keeping them for 15 years, which nobody knows what the future holds with these teams. But Denver Broncos 9 and 2, first in the NFL right now. I did a mock draft the other day, picking 32nd. Couldn't believe it. So that was really fun. Chiefs game was awesome. Big win for us. Now we just need the Colts to beat the Chiefs on Sunday, and we'll be all set.
That Denver pass rush and that Denver defense is something impressive.
Yeah, let me tell you something about that. So 3 years ago, I believe 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had Draymond Jones. Free agent. So we were either going to re-sign Draymond Jones or go after another player. Well, guess who the player we got instead of Draymond Jones was for the same price? That'd be Zach Allen. He came over when Vance Joseph got hired as a defensive coordinator, and he brought Zach Allen with him from Arizona. I mean, what a beast on the interior. I mean, he is one of the best defensive interior linemen in football. Not like a true nose tackle by any means, but like pass rushing interior linemen, there's not many better.
Yeah, Vance is probably going to be a good name in the next hiring cycle, I think.
I would agree.
Especially if, Davis Webb comes along potentially as an OC. But anyway.
Well, we are here to do our third podcast on the safeties in the 2026 draft class. So this is the third straight week. We've covered, after this week, I think we will have covered 30 or 33 safeties. So we're going to talk today about Jacoby Thomas from Miami, Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina, Genesis Smith from Arizona, Terry Moore from Duke, Bud Clark from TCU, Bray Hubbard from Alabama, Emmanuel McNeil-WarrenToledo from Toledo, Michael Taaffe from Texas, Kamari Ramsey from USC, Dillon Thieneman from Oregon, and Caleb Downs from Ohio State. So if the safety that you like is not on this list, there's a really good chance that we covered him on a prior podcast. And you can go to the YouTube channel to see. The first safety up is Jacoby Thomas from Miami. So shout out to draft professor Jack Brentnall. He was the one that brought Thomas to my attention. Shaw, what did you see with Jacoby Thomas?
Yeah, so Jacoby Thomas started his career at Middle Tennessee State University, transferred to Tennessee last year. While he was at Tennessee, he didn't really get on the field. I honestly didn't get a chance to look in it, whether it was injury or what. But he only played 263 snaps last year, transfers again to Miami. I actually watched a couple games of him. The first game I watched was Florida, which is his second lowest graded game according to PFF. So I just kind of used PFF to figure out which games I want to watch. It was early in the season. You can tell he wasn't there from a speed perspective, from a processing perspective. He had some things that he needed to work on. He was out of place. He was missing tackles. I just got the chance to go through his Florida State game, which was his second highest graded game. So a few weeks later, after the Florida game, played against Florida State, played really well in that game. I thought he was a player that kind of took over at times, and he was all over the place in coverage. The one thing about him that, his biggest room for improvement is he has a 23% missed tackle rate. So, he isn't the best tackler in the world, but his cover skills are really, really good, and he looks good in the back end of the defense. He's able to come up. He's willing to come up and make plays at the line of scrimmage, things like that. And it's he's shot out of a cannon when he goes and gets the play. Like, you'll see him bust through the line and make a play, and he'll just miss the guy's ankles, or he'll not be able to wrap up, and they'll hit the guy for a 1 or 2 yard gain, and then someone else will come and finish off the tackle. So I think he's almost there, and I can see the improvement. Like this last week against NC State, he had 2 interceptions. It was his best game on paper. Don't have that film, wasn't able to watch that game yet. But you can tell the improvement from early in the season all the way on. I think Notre Dame, his first game, week 1, was his worst game on paper. So again, didn't get a chance to watch that game. But from the Florida to Florida State game, which was only a 2 or 3 week difference, the level of competition for Jacoby Thomas, I think he really raised it. I think he's someone who should be rising, and I'm excited to see him, go throughout the college football playoff. Hopefully, if Miami can sneak in. I don't know how the ACC is doing. It doesn't seem very good right now,
and the Miami defensive backfield has a few new players in it, right? Because they also brought in Keontae Scott from Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
And learning, if you're a safety, learning and being able to trust who some of the other players that you're playing with are, that makes a difference. Because I think Keontae Scott is probably going to be drafted, sometime on day 3. Steve, do you have anything on Jacoby Thomas, or should we move on to the next player?
I'm going to say move on. I appreciate, learning about him, from you guys as well as Jack. I get a little nervous at this, phase in late November about adding more in, but, outside of here and there, I haven't watched enough tape to give, an honest opinion. So maybe when in a couple of weeks we do our big board, I'll have enough time to, compile something on him and give an opinion and maybe squeeze him into the board there.
Yep.
Okay. So, Steve, Jalon Kilgore from South Carolina, what do you have?
Yeah. So stats match up. Big thing is, if you're searching for him on various sites, you may not find him if you're looking for safety because he is a corner. And I don't remember which of the draft professors, may have been a few of them, that said, no, safety. And, as I started watching a couple of months ago, yeah, I totally agree with it. Right. So we know the size profile, it's on the slide, his physicality, his zone instincts, they project more naturally to an NFL safety than as a corner. I think his best traits in terms of his processing, his anticipation, his contributions in run support, and the ability that he has to play top down probably translate better when he could keep the plays in front of him. And, as a safety in the NFL, reduce some of the exposure to some pure vertical man coverage where he has shown, if you look at some of the games, to be a little vulnerable, and you get the right kind of, pro NFL coaching. I think his upside is much better as a high-end safety rather than potentially as an average corner. One of the questions that you've consistently asked as we've done these shows over the last couple of weeks is our view about playing single high. I'm not so sure, that I would do that maybe on spot duty. I do think, in terms of a two high or in a robber role, playing in the box, along the hash, and use them in the slot. I think that's where Kilgore, is really valuable. His short area burst is really good. He could, you can't teach speed, and that's one area of improvement is his recovery speed and, his tackling consistency. But the flashes, his improved discipline, his competitive toughness, I think he's a solid player. And right now I've got a round 4 grade on him. So whatever the numbers come out to, I forget where the numbers go, but certainly within the top 150. Cha, what about you?
Yeah, so Kilgore was someone that actually really surprised me when I went through and scouted him with my model. He actually graded out as my 6th overall safety, so just outside of the top 5 guys for me. And a big reason for that is his explosiveness. I know Steve talked about his short area burst, but just whether he's in the box, in the slot, like he explodes to the ball. He wants to hit people. He wants to be around the ball, and I love that. And I think he is not someone who I would want to see play deep safety. I would actually like to see him as a box safety, a slot corner hybrid that can move around and be a matchup nightmare for opposing offenses. And the reason is that I watched the Bama game against Alabama. He was multiple times asked, not only in the slot, but outside, to be one-on-one with Ryan Williams, who a lot of people think is one of the best wide receivers in the country in next year's draft. And he held his own pretty well. So I like Kilgore. I think he's he's a really fluid mover. He mirrors the receivers really well from a cornerback kind of perspective on that outside. So he's really good in coverage. Like Steve said, the zone instincts are there. And I love the physicality of the player. And also he is one of the players I've only given out 2, for my purposes, it doesn't matter, but basically the highest grade I would give on upside for a player. So him and Caleb Downs are tied for upside for NFL. So a big part of my grade is, what they could be in the NFL. And I think when you have someone like Kilgore that can move around as fluidly as he does in the back end, he gives the defensive coordinator so many options. We can cover a tight end. He can cover the number 1 wide receiver in the slot. He can sit back in deep safety a few snaps a game, and it's not going to hurt your defense. So I really liked what I saw from Kilgore. I think that he's another player that's just going to improve. It's unfortunate that South Carolina's struggling right now. I think they're 3-7 or something like that. So they're not going to make a bowl game. They're not going to make a playoff. So he's got like 2 games left to put it out there. But I would imagine that he's someone, obviously Steve talked about his long speed. I think that's going to be a huge question mark at the combine, right? That was the one thing that I saw. But everything intermediate and short underneath, he's physical to the ball. He's fast. He's quick and explosive. And I really liked watching his tape.
Yep. So again, and Steve, you did a really good job introducing his position. So safety, corner. Kilgore is probably a slot player. Next Thursday, we're going to have a podcast on slot players. We're actually putting Harold Perkins in the same podcast as Jalon Kilgore and talking about what do you look for in a slot player. And you'll see that Thursday night with EJ and Taylor. So this channel will be covering Kilgore a lot. The corner group covered him. The safety group covered him. Definitely a player that's going to be drafted. And this is a player I think you even trade up for on day 3. Like if you need a safety and he is still there day 3, I think you go up and get him. And that's me giving Brandon Bean a message there. But Genesis Smith from Arizona, and that should say safety, not corner. So typo on the slide. I believe he has another year of eligibility left. But Taylor, what do you have on Genesis Smith?
Yeah, I believe he does. He's a true junior. So he does have another year of eligibility left. But Genesis Smith, as you can see on the screen, 6'2", 204 pounds. And he's someone that, and we've talked about this a lot over the course of these shows with these defensive backs, safety specifically, is they were in a different role previously in years past, and they've switched roles. So last year he played almost exclusively as a slot corner. They've moved him now kind of towards the back end of that defense. And He at times has been a total game wrecker. Like he took over the Kansas State game, absolutely dominated, was in the backfield making plays, was making plays in the passing game. But the best thing that I love about him, besides his aggressiveness, besides his fluidity, besides his size, everything about him, I really, really like. Ryan just hit it on the head. Energy guy for that defense. His coach called him the CEO, the Chief Energy Officer, and that is a direct quote. From that's what they think about him from an Arizona perspective. Not only that, he's on the All-State AFCA Good Works team. He has his own youth camp that he hosts every year. He, donates or he helps to get gifts for 12 families in the local area to do, a Christmas thing so that they can experience that. So he's just a really, really good dude, a leader on that defense. He's switched to safety now full time. And he is someone that, I think is flying up draft boards. And I don't think that it's going to stop. I do think, like Kilgore, a little bit similar size, but both have slot experience. But I think Genesis Smith actually can play deep a little bit better than Kilgore can. I do think the long speed is going to be an issue potentially. But, if he's playing single high, I think that he has the ability to make plays. I just don't know how often I'd want to see him in single high, if that makes sense. But really good player, really good leader. He started at both safety positions this year. And honestly, his best game was that Kansas State game. It's kind of been up and down since then. But even on film, like he might not be the one making the tackle, but he's running over there and he's laying a shoulder into you while you're on the ground. Like he's that type of player, energy guy, like Ryan said. And big fan of Genesis Smith as well. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. If there's a singular word that I'd probably use for Genesis Smith is leader, right? And frequently, and I think it's probably his best trait as a player, as a person. He's been recognized for his leadership. He's a Werfel Trophy watch list. And that's where he contributes, right? The only yellow flag I have is the missed tackles. So that is a concern for me. But pass breakups, interceptions, the ball skills he shows, I could get by the tackling thing, but it's definitely something that has to be worked on. When you look, I think he's something like, I don't have it in front of me, but something last year, it was something like 20 or 22% missed tackle rate.
22 this year.
22 this year. Okay. I don't remember what it was for 24. So, could be a little bit more disciplined on his angles, similar to Kilgore. The deep speed, I'm not sure is there, but, the size fits the modern multiple alignments, right? Both in college and the pros. He is ideal for these hybrid roles. I certainly wouldn't want him in a single high role on a consistent basis. I mean, his range is fine, but I just think he would be more impactful in terms of being a safety closer to the line and, squeezing the routes. So, yeah, I think another guy early, day 3 potential that's shaping up on him.
Yeah, Ryan brings up a really good point. I mean, I noticed that as well. Like he has given up. Like I think that Ryan Williams example I gave earlier was not Ryan. Sorry, wrong guy. I think it was it the K-State game? I don't remember. He got burnt one time, and then the next day they ran the same play, and he was all over it. And I think that's another thing from like Steve's perspective, from a leadership perspective. Like a lot of times, like I was watching, I think it was either the Colorado game or another game, and he was pointing out the quarterback was going to run the ball before anyone on the defensive line knew. So he moved the defensive line over to stop it, and then he ended up making the play on the outside. So he's a really talented player. I had one other thing I was going to say about him, but I kind of forgot what it was. So never mind. We can move on.
Yep. And one other thing about Arizona. So Arizona has Genesis Smith at safety. They have a slot corner named Traydon Stukes. We've covered Stukes a couple times on a couple of other podcasts. Stukes profiles well to be a safety, but they say you can't move to safety when you're playing on the same team as Genesis Smith. So, right, because you can't have two guys playing the same position. So Smith is good enough to keep Stukes at slot corner, even though Stukes' best position is probably safety. Right? So that Arizona defense definitely has some really good players on the back end that are playing with Genesis Smith. I would say it's 50-50 whether Smith is in this draft class. He's a player that when, January 6th, I believe it is, rolls around, I'll be really curious to see if he declares. So next player, I know he's injured, but I also know how much the two of you both like Terry Moore when we talked about safeties earlier in the cycle. So Taylor, where are you on Terry Moore from obviously that, we have 2024 tape. He's been hurt with Duke. Do you think he's in the draft class? Do you think he takes a medical red shirt? How do you think that's going to play out?
It's so interesting with NIL. I literally have no idea. I don't know if he'll be in this class or not. I think he just missed his last game last week to make him eligible for a medical red shirt. So that's on the table. It's possible. I believe they'll have Mensa coming back right next year. So, that ACC is wide open. I could easily see Terry Moore being like, you know what, didn't get to put on any good film in 2024. Let me take this medical red shirt and then get back out there in 2025. And again, he's really only had production for 2 seasons. So he played in 2023 and played in 2024. So I don't think it's a bad idea for him to come back. But based on his 2024 tape and kind of what I was expecting, hoping going into this year, I mean, he was phenomenal last year. Like, he is one of my top safeties in this entire class if he were to come out. The only thing, and Steve and I talked about this pre-show, is like he's kind of like Jermod McCoy, where it's like from Tennessee, like the corner. You want to see him. He's highly graded out of summer scouting. You want to see him bounce back from injury, get on the field, show what he can do. With another year or another off season of knowledge. Obviously, he's not going to be there from a physical standpoint. But he's just the guy. And I said this when we did the summer scouting show. Terry Moore, he was one of my favorite safeties out of that because he does his 111th every single play. It does not matter if the ball is coming his way. It does not matter if the ball is going right at him. He is doing his part of that defense, and that's all you can ask a safety to do, especially someone playing deep in the back end. You got to shut down one side of the field at times. Sometimes you have to shut down the whole back end of the defense, and Terry Moore does that, and he does it at a really high level. Like I said, the only thing right now is his injury, but he was covering KC Concepcion one-on-one, and he was winning. So, like, he's that type of player when he's healthy, and I think that says a lot because Concepcion, obviously, some people as a draft professors had him as wide receiver 1. He has now played himself into a round 1 wide receiver, and you have a safety, not a corner, a safety going toe-to-toe with him and handling him pretty well. So I'm a big fan. I think he is a really good ball hawking safety as well. Solid tackler. Again, like I said, he made multiple plays against Concepcion. The issue, I think, is for him, he just needs to clean up some of his discipline at the catch point, and that's really what I want to see. He had a couple penalties that kind of hurt him, when the ball is coming his way. He's in good position, but it's kind of like, I'm obviously a Broncos fan, so I'm going to equate it to what Riley Moss is going through right now. Like, Riley Moss has been in good position a lot of times, but he gets a little grabby. So you got to put those boxing gloves on. So you can't grab the defender, and that's one area that I want to see him improve on. But, man, I'm excited to watch him get back out on the field. And like you said about Genesis Smith, I mean, 50-50. He could enter this draft. He could go back, and we really don't know at this point. But I'm a huge fan of Terry Moore.
Steve, where are you on Terry Moore right now?
Yeah, Chaw, you said everything I could. I mean, he was a multi-sport athlete. He was recruited for his versatility and physicality. He really transitioned smoothly into the Blue Devil defense. And this really stinks, that we haven't been able to get our eyes on him in 2025 and basing it. Missed tackle rate is a little up there in 24. I could live with it. Good contributor on special teams, based on his physical style, his long stride, fits the kick coverage roles, multi-year contributor, right? So that's what hurts about this one. There were a bunch of games from last season where, in addition to the points that Taylor was bringing up about covering KC Concepcion, his run support performances with multiple solo tackles and minimizing, yards after the catch were great. He's got a strong downhill trigger. He's made good key third down stops. His film, the film shows his pursuit angles are good enough. And yeah, it just hurts, that we can't see him. And I hope he goes back, if he can. Interestingly, the only other thing that I'll say, when I was doing the summer stuff on him, I think Terry Moore also, with a little extra weight, could also fit in to a hybrid role as a dime will backer. I think he's got, the ability to do that, and still, run better than some of your traditional stack backers that are covering, running backs and tight ends. But yeah, this one is a rough eval, and, just hope he gets, back healthy and whatever, because right now it's just hard to put a draftable grade on him.
Okay. Now we're going to pick up a little momentum from this point forward in the podcast. Bud Clark, 6'2", 190. Steve, what else do you have on the TCU safety?
Yeah, so I've made no secret that he was one of my guys coming out of summer. And as we've gone through this exercise over the course of the last, couple of months or so, and I readjust my board, I'm not waving the flag, as busily as I did before. I'm still very high on him. I still see him, and I did all along, in that early day 3 range. It's just good missed tackle rate. He has allowed 4 touchdowns, and that's a big difference from last season where he didn't allow any. Very limited special teams contributions, multiple double-digit tackles, high usage, asked to cover deep, as well as on the intermediate zones. But he has been a consistent multi-year starter, with the strong ball production, multiple interception seasons, above average tackling totals, strong coverage games early in the career, with a lot of pass breakups. I'm not sure why some of it is dipped this year. Maybe, Taylor, this is more to, your thing, where I get into numbers and things, but his frame, his length, the flashes in his range, his ball skills, he's angry. I like the angry guys, and he plays with a disruptive play style. Yeah. So I think he's, probably best suited for, zone heavy teams, ones that'll run a lot of quarters, certainly cover 2, match zone. But yeah, still got a good solid day 3 on him. And if you're watching, Bud, I still love you, buddy. There you
Taylor,
go, Taylor.
Where are you on Bud Clark right now?
Yeah, so shout out to Steve for sending me some tape because I couldn't get tape on him. I did not get a chance to watch it, though, so I'll only say a couple things. I'll keep it quick. We'll move on. He has given up 4 touchdowns this year, but he's also intercepted 4 passes, which is more than he did the last 2 years, including 2 from Sam Levitt in the same game. So he's a guy who, like, and again, I don't know, Steve, I kind of zoned out when you were talking, no offense. But
I get that a lot.
He switched from, like, he played 442 snaps in the box last year. He's only played 200 in the box right now. He's played more snaps in the slot this year than he did all of last year. So he's kind of moving. He's another one of those guys that can really move around. And with that size and being able to move around like that, man, I'm excited to get into his tape because I know Steve likes him.
Okay. Next safety, Taylor, Bray Hubbard from Alabama.
Okay, yeah, Bray Hubbard. He is the guy we talked about, Keon Sabb, last podcast. He is the guy opposite Keon Sabb, who kind of plays more of that box role, right? Keon Sabb's on the back end of the defense playing the single high, and then Bray Hubbard's able to make plays in the slot or down near the line of scrimmage. He is really physical. He's a really physical player that is able to make a ton of plays at the line of scrimmage, which I think is something interesting because we've talked about this numerous times, Jim, and I know you want to know if they can play single high safety. And I've talked about this before, but there's a play against Georgia in 2024 where he's playing single high and it looks like the guy's wide open down the sideline, and Bray Hubbard just beelines it, perfect angle, leaping interception, taking the ball away. So he's interesting. He's definitely someone that I want to see down near the line of scrimmage, again, where he can utilize his strengths. Being fast is not his number one strength, I wouldn't say, but he's explosive to the ball. And I think that's something that I'm really looking for in safeties, because there's like track speed doesn't really get you very far as a safety, right? But being able to get to the ball as soon as possible is like one of the number one traits I'm looking for. And Bray Hubbard does that. So he is a player. When I graded him, I gave him his physicality, his explosiveness, and his instincts were the highest things that I graded him on. And I think those things alone are good enough to get him. I think he's going to be a dominant special teamer, because I think he's a day 3 guy. And we've talked about this multiple times, but those day 3 picks, like those are going to special teams to start, and then they'll mix in as like a rotational safety or whatever. I do have Bray Hubbard graded a little bit lower than some of these guys that we're talking about. He's just outside my top 10 safeties, but he is someone who I think is going to make an impact for an NFL team. I just don't know which one, but special teams, back end, depth piece, that's Bray Hubbard.
Steve, what do you have?
Yeah. He has been a pretty consistent special teams contributor, so I think that's going to serve him well, because he is a fringe round 4, round 5 guy for me. Core phase player, reliable effort. He's disciplined, really has improved year over year, 24 to 25 with his technique. He was a multi-position athlete in high school. He was a 3-star recruit, and he was known coming out for his competitiveness, for his toughness, and his versatility. And I think that's translated during, his time. I mean, his missed tackle rate has really improved significantly year over year. His usage has heavily increased in 2025. And that's been reflected in more, in the targets. He's very disciplined in his coverage. His tackling angles are good. He's clearly taken on a more of an expanded role. As far as, when we talk about the single high thing, yeah, I agree. That's where Sab should be. He's my box, my overhang. Let him play downhill and in the short zones, and that's where I want to see him. But yeah, good player. Should be fun to watch him.
Cool. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. What do you have, Steve?
Yeah. So interesting evaluation with him. I know there's a lot of people that have become very high on him. Hang on. I had some notes because I didn't start watching him until yesterday. And Taylor, you take over. Let me catch up to where I put some of my notes here.
Yeah. Okay. I love talking about Maction players. So big fan of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren right now. He is graded as my safety number 9. Highest grade that I gave him, and I gave him the same grade. It's the second highest grade I could possibly give for instincts. His pre-snap ability to control the defense, the backfield, or the defensive backfield, let people know where to go. He's organizing the linebackers, and I don't know if he wears the green hat or whatever. He is in control of that secondary. And I mean, surely he's the best player on Toledo. I don't think that's really necessarily debatable, right? People are talking about him day 2 of the NFL draft. So 6'2", 202 pounds. He is a physical player. I mean, he's explosive to the ball. I do think he misses too many tackles right now. So I think that's an area he really needs to clean up. He has his highest missed tackle rate of his entire career this year. So that's not something you really want to see, especially when you're pushed into a little bit of a larger leadership role. You got to make the plays that are in front of you out there. And that's one thing that I would say he needs to clean up. But from a processing, from an instinct standpoint, I think he's really, really solid. And I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing him drafted by a team that is willing to utilize his football knowledge, because it's clear from the film that he knows a lot about what the offense is doing before the offense is, snapping the ball. So he's organizing the defense, getting them ready for what play is coming. And I love that because you don't get to see that a lot from non-power 5 guys, right? So non-power 5 guys don't really get to see that leadership kind of show up on tape, right? At least from an instincts perspective, there's a lot at the G6 level that isn't on the same level as a power 4 school. That doesn't matter. You could tell from his tape what he is, what he knows, his football knowledge, and he's always in the right place at the right time. And yes, great point about missing tackles. I mean, we have to clean it up. Obviously, the Bengals safeties missed a couple tackles on that goofy Colson Loveland touchdown a few weeks ago. But I just think he's so physical, and he's just such a demanding presence in the back end. Like if you ask him, if I go interview Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I say, hey, what do you think you need to clean up? He's like, man, I bet I missed too many opportunities. I'm missing chances to get a 0, a 1, a negative 1 yard gain. And that turns into maybe a 3-4 yard gain, but like that could change the entire momentum of a drive. So, things like that, small things to clean up. I do think his coverage is lacking a little bit, but that's not really what he's asked to do. He's asked to be down in the box, be physical, be a demanding presence in the back end of the defense. And I think he does that really, really well.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll just chime in. I mean, he was an underrated recruit, and he really has, I think, Taylor, you said it, developed into the anchor of Toledo's secondary, right? And he's making a name for himself based on his instincts, his range, and his toughness. Ryan, man, you had me cracking up on that. Sounds like a Bengal. Yeah, so the missed tackles, the percentage and the number is up there, but he's been targeted 11 times. He's only given up 5 receptions. So he's actually improved on that versus 2024. The amount of yards that he's given up has been cut by more than half. If I pull out a calculator, it's probably like 60, 70%. And I think some of it is because his reputation and coverage has improved. But, he has been steady overall. My issue is the tackling lapses and the over pursuit. But he has made some really key pass breakups. He's got strong zone awareness. His ankles are good. A lot of times when we talk about these defensive backs on these podcasts, they have to work on the angles. I think that's one of his positive traits right now. I think he needs more work on his discipline, and he does blow assignments. So I think he needs to be a little bit more confident in his route recognition, but he's a tough kid, man. He's tough and he's instinctual. I'm not as high on him. I don't know if he will come in at number 9 for me on my board as I'm working through it. Right now, I've seen some people having him as a day 2. He's round 5, round 6 for me now, but I'm open to debate. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think from what I'm seeing on I finally graded out 23 or something safeties. So I finally have a full picture because I wanted to get my grade is just the number rating, and then I'll figure out what grades. But based on guys like Caleb Downs at the top, like that's around 1 guy. Obviously, I think we talked about last podcast. I said Jalen Husky and AJ Halsey were like late day 2 guys for me. And Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is the next guy for me right after those 2. So he is probably around a day 4 for me. But again, he's another guy that I think he has tremendous upside. So I gave him a high upside score in my model. So that would be why he's up there for me. And I do remember what I was going to say about Genesis Smith earlier. So I'm going to quickly wrap up to that. And I saw a tweet and it made me laugh out loud. It said that Genesis Smith needs to take a geometry class. Speaking of angles. So, that was funny, but I loved watching Genesis Smith's tape because there were times where he was playing straight up Mike linebacker. He was in the middle of the defense. There'd be a run play to the left and he's scraping down the defensive line as if he's a linebacker and filling the hole. And I'm like, you don't get that from a lot of dudes. So, anyways, but yeah, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, I think is a solid player and he's going to have a good draft grade when it's all said and done.
Okay, moving it up a notch. Michael Taaffe from Texas. Taylor, what do you have?
Yeah, Michael Taaffe. So he is someone that I was able to look at in the summer scouting. Awesome. He is a former walk-on. Saw an ESPN story, not gonna lie, brought a tear to my eye. He wears number 16 for his friend who passed away in a car crash on his 18th birthday. He was the quarterback on their state championship football team in Texas, so that's why he wears number 16. Sarkisian asked him, like, hey, Arch is gonna wear 16. Are you okay with that? And he's like, I have to wear 16. Like, it's in my blood. I have to wear that. So he got 16. It's a great story. He got on scholarship. He's been a phenomenal player for the Texas defense. He's fast. He's aggressive. He has really encouraging traits, right? From run support, from a coverage standpoint. Again, some tape from last year. He was locking up Eli Stowers, however you say it, in the end zone. And just one-on-one pass coverage. So I think he times his blitzes well. He's in the backfield. He's wreaking havoc, basically. He's kind of like the Energizer Bunny out there. And I think his coverage skills are some of the best amongst the safeties in this group. So that's where I graded him the highest, with some of his coverage skills alongside his physicality, which I think is kind of in the middle, because it's like an Energizer Bunny, but he's not the biggest guy, right? He's small. He's 6 foot. He's only 189 pounds. So some of these other guys that are 6'2", 215 or whatever, he's not going to do that from a physicality standpoint. But he's explosive. Like, he is like I said, he's just someone, like, I don't want to say a battering ram, because that's like that's what you call a running back. But whatever the equivalent of that is on the defense, that's what Michael Taaffe is to me. He makes plays all over the field, and he's just a guy who's involved. He's another one of those guys, and I've talked about it multiple times, exploding to the ball, going to where the ball is. There's some safeties we talked about last episode that just kind of sit back and they're like, well, there's linebackers in front of me, I'll jog over there or whatever. Not Michael Taaffe. He's going hard at every single play. And you love that, right? He's a former walk-on. You love that mentality. So I think there's a lot of positive traits. I don't think he's going to wow anybody in the underwear Olympics, as Steve likes to call them. But it'll be interesting to see what NFL teams think, because I think he's a weapon that can be unleashed in the secondary and do different things. But he's not going to be able to, guard many tight ends that are 6'4", 250 pounds one-on-one.
And Taylor, are you day 2 on Taaffe?
Yeah, he actually graded in tied with Terry Moore, who, again, Terry Moore is only going off of last year's film, so I'll probably readjust this at some point. But that would put him as my safety number 4 right now. Yeah.
Okay. Steve, where are you on Michael Taaffe?
Well, I think it's important that we preface any conversation about Michael Taaffe by saying, find yourself somebody who loves you the way draft professor Owen loves Michael Taaffe. Right? Because I've been here. Owen's face lights up, right?
Yes.
Everything, whenever he talks about Michael Taaffe. So shout out to you, Owen. Had to throw you that. But yeah, I mean, he's solid day 2 for me, round 3 conversation. Taylor mentioned that he's a former walk-on. He got the scholarship, high character, high IQ, and he's known for his composure and his communication. When I was talking last week about AJ Halsey, one of the traits that I liked really a lot about him was, even, with Harold Perkins and Whit Weeks, his communication was visible. And I see that with Taaffe as well. I mean, outstanding, okay, everybody misses tackles, but, his numbers are solid. He's only at an 8.1 missed tackle rate. The key to that statement, before somebody says, only, is it was a lot higher last year. I mean, that has been a marked area of improvement. He was over 20% last year. He allowed 15 completions on 23 targets, 130 yards, and that has been a massive improvement. He's reliable with his special teams contributions, and he's known for his discipline, and again, his communication. It's good downhill trigger, instinctive, good at route recognition, and he's certainly trial by fire for where he plays, right? I mean, he's not the reason why Texas is where they are this season, right? I think he's one of the bright spots. I think he could fit multiple NFL schemes, whether it's the zone heavy teams, whether it's big nickel, whether, anything with alignment versatility. And Owen's right. He's a late day 2 guy for me.
Okay. Love hearing that. Next player, Kamari Ramsey, the safety from USC, 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. Steve, what else do you want to say?
Yeah. So he's been at USC now for a couple of years. He came over from crosstown at UCLA. 4-star recruit, known for his physicality, his toughness. He makes immediate impacts on the field. Probably our lowest missed tackle rate of any of the guys, only 3%. He has allowed 20 receptions, but he's been tested. I think in terms of all the guys we've talked about tonight, he's been targeted the most, and, bend don't break philosophy. But his productivity is similar. Oh shoot, I was trying to think of the name. It'll come back to me. But consistent multi-tackle games. Again, his tackling has improved. That's evident. Certainly in some of the earlier season matchups that I watched, making consistent key third down stops. His best traits, I would say, is his physicality, how he tackles, because rumor is that's important. Maybe not to the Bengals, Ryan, but it is important in the NFL. He's strong instinctually in his short to intermediate. And I just think he's an aggressive guy. Right now, he's my safety number 3, and definitely a day 2 guy. I would say early round 3. In terms of single high, I can see him doing it. Maybe not, on a consistent basis, but I think his versatility would allow him to contribute on some downs in that single high role, where I haven't been able to say that a lot tonight. Cha, what do you got on Kamari?
Kamari Ramsey. I don't think I've talked about this on I think we talked about it on the USC Illinois preview, Steve. Their defensive coordinator from USC, and I'm not gonna remember his name, and I'm sorry for that. Loves Kamari Ramsey, talks very highly of him, as he should. And I think the reason why you're not seeing him in the back end and playing that single high role, which he did in 2023 and 2024, is because they've had so many injuries in their secondary at the slot position specifically. So they had no choice but to put Kamari Ramsey, who is their vocal leader, their defensive leader, in the slot, and he's been playing at a really high level. So he's playing primarily in the slot because they've had injuries. So he hasn't been able to show a lot of tape in 2025 of, playing deep safety, playing that one high look. But I do think he's someone that can do it. And I think you did him a disservice by saying he has the lowest missed tackle rate. 1 missed tackle all year. That's it for Kamari Ramsey. I don't care if it's 3%. 1 missed tackle. That's it. You love to see that from your safeties. I think he's a really good player. I also have him graded as my 3rd overall safety right now. I love the versatility, being able to, and I know he's a little bit bigger listed than Jacob Parrish from K-State, but he's someone that reminds me of that player, because Jacob Parrish spent most of his career as an outside corner for Kansas State. But he shifted to the slot due to some injuries last year, and he's someone that blazed at the combine and blew the doors off and ended up getting drafted in the 3rd round. And now he's been one of the best safeties, one of the best rookie safeties in the entire league for the Buccaneers. So I see Kamari Ramsey in a similar light, where he can play any of the 5 positions in the secondary. He can play single high. He can play outside corner. He can play slot. He can play down in the box. It doesn't matter where you put Kamari Ramsey. Even when you're watching other dudes from USC, number 7 pops out on tape to me every time. So I'm a big fan of Kamari Ramsey. I think that he has the versatility to play anywhere in the secondary. I would take him day 2, probably in the 2nd round.
Okay. 2 more safeties to go. Dillon Thieneman from Oregon, 6 feet tall, 205 pounds. Taylor, what else do you have on the Oregon safety?
Yeah, so he was someone that I really enjoyed watching, from kind of what I mentioned about Genesis Smith, where he's almost playing that like Mike linebacker role in those 4 corner sets. Man, I just love the way he gets to the ball. There are some effort plays from Thieneman that you aren't seeing a lot of these safeties make. And I'm probably just beating a dead horse at this point, talking about how much it matters. But to me, coming up from the back end with a purpose is way more important than just kind of being out there covering your 111th, doing your zone, right? He actually gets and he makes an impact on any play that he can, which I think is something that, I'm sure a lot of these safeties, do that, but there's a lot of times on tape where you'll see a guy take a play or two off and it's like, the linebacker's got him. He's not going in there. Not Thieneman. He's one of those guys that's always involved, always around the ball. So I really like what I've seen from him in that. I think that he's good at stepping up into run support, even whether it's coming from the defensive back all the way back in deep safety, or if he's playing up near the line of scrimmage already. He's also decent at man-to-man. That's not something that I think that he needs to be on an island with, Jamar Chase or anything crazy like that. But he's someone that can hold his own against tight ends and even some bigger slot wide receivers. Again, he has some things that I think he needs to work on from a processing standpoint, like especially when things get moving east-west pre-snap. I think there's a little bit of times he's a little late to react to whether it's a jet sweep or a screen coming downhill on those. But I do think he's extremely athletic. He's dependable. And yeah, I think he just needs to, tighten up a little. My summer scouting notes were that he needs to tighten up his consistency and tackle a little bit better. And he has done those things, and he has solidified himself to me as someone that can go. And again, I don't think there's 32 round one gradable players in this class, but 32 people will get drafted in the first round. It would not shock me if Thieneman snuck into the back half of the first round. And I think that he's just a player that is, not on the rise. I mean, people have known about him, but he is a true junior. And I think he's going to come out because I think he's the second best safety in this class.
Steve, where are you in Dillon Thieneman?
Yeah, right there with Taylor on that. Yep. Second best safety in this class. I also agree, that he could sneak to the bottom of the first round. Team wants some value with that 5th-year option. I don't expect him personally to get out of the top 40. So if he's not in the top 32, I think he's going to be an early round 2 pick. Came over from Purdue just to increase that draft profile. He was an immediate starter there, and, it's clicked perfectly well with the Ducks. There was something that Taylor had said, and I think it's good. When I think of Thieneman, he's more angles and anticipation to me than a sideline to sideline guy. And I think you had said about East-West, right? I don't think that's, where he excels. I think his shedding of blocks needs to be a little bit better. The size is good. The speed is good. The versatility. He's smart. He's got a good football IQ, and he's steadily gotten better, being as good as he is. I think he could fit different schemes. You want to run cover 1? I think he fits. You want to run cover 2? I think he fits. You want to run, some cover 3 and do some disguise? I think he fits. So, yeah, I definitely think he's a round 2 guy with certainly round 1 upside. He could develop into, this era's Minka Fitzpatrick. I really believe that. It's a little soon for the comp. Certainly Minka's been, a great player, but that's one that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And I guess with that, we start the drum roll for,
Is there another safety?
I don't know. Let me look.
I don't
Maybe
know.
not.
Well,
this might be more of a religious experience. All kidding aside.
So
and yes,
we have an Ohio State podcaster that's going to be talking about an Ohio State safety. There are some people that have Caleb Downs as their highest graded player in the draft class. So we'll talk about the scouting report, and then we will talk about how high can a safety get drafted. But Steve, the resident Ohio State fan, go ahead and talk about your guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot that hasn't been said about Caleb Downs, right? And, look, he's coming out, right? But he could go back, like a lot of these other guys. But, what would be the point of that? You came over from Alabama, and now you're here. You know, there's a rumor that he's run a 4.38 40. I don't know about that, but I guess we'll see. 5-star recruit. He's got the football family lineage. He made an immediate impact with the Tide. You know, he's got strong punt return ability. I'm not saying I want the best safety in the class to be doing it, but it's there. You know, 189 tackles, 14 pass breakups. You know, unfortunately, it was a loss, but one of his best games was against Michigan last year, where he had 11 tackles and an interception. And he had the punt return touchdown against Indiana, another name that's becoming quite popular. You know, doesn't allow touchdowns, right? Single high, sure. You know, big nickel, 2 high systems, sure. You know, he could probably part the waters of the Red Sea, right? No, but you know, I'll be honest. You know, he's up there for me. He's my number 2 player overall on the board. And I'll give the mic to Taylor because Taylor has been on diatribes about where safety should go or where he thinks he should go. And I think he does a great job explaining it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and
yeah. So Taylor, give your scouting report, and then we will close out the podcast with a discussion of how high can a safety get drafted.
Yeah. So Caleb Downs made me shut the hell up about that. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, this guy, he had the highest grade for upside that I have in my model. Highest grade for, you know, defensive playmaker, because he's all over the field, just owning the field when he's on there in the back end. And of my film grade, you can get a 15. That's the highest score, 15. He got 14.4. So right now he is by far and away my highest graded safety. I mean, just a dynamic player. I mean, he actually is one of the best safeties that I personally have ever scouted. I've been doing this for a long time on a large scale. But I would probably say he's different player, but up there with the Kyle Hamiltons of the world, right? That are getting drafted. I think he was drafted 13th overall, if I'm not, or 14th overall, something 14. Like that. Mm-hmm. Caleb Downs is that dude. And like Kyle Hamilton is great. And he was picked 14th by the Baltimore Ravens because he is a smash fit for that defense, right? That is what they want to do. They want that box-like style safety that can do everything. And that's what Kyle Hamilton was. Caleb Downs is not as physical because he's not as big, right? But he does more in coverage, I think, than Kyle Hamilton does. And I think he is just as explosive of a player. So it would not surprise me to see him go top 10. And I have long said, and we can start the discussion now, I have long said I did not think, and it's not my thinking, I don't have a dog in this fight, right? He's going to grade out as a top 5 to top 10 player for me, okay? That's just what it is. Caleb Downs is that good of a prospect. NFL teams still aren't necessarily viewing safeties at that level. So I don't know. I really don't know if there's a team that's willing to use a top 10 draft pick on safety. I just did a mock draft on Monday or Tuesday earlier this week, and I had him going 7 to Washington. And I think that's a really, really good fit, right? I think they really need someone like that. They actually nailed a draft pick a few years ago. Nobody really talks about it, but they nailed that draft pick in the 7th round with Cam Curl, and then they let him go. And now he's on the Rams, and he's really good. So he was good on the Commanders too. They just got rid of him when Dan Quinn got brought in that defense, but he'd be the perfect fit for that defense. I think that is the team that I could see taking him. I don't necessarily think Washington ends up picking in the top 10. They might be like fringe 10 to 15. I don't really know. They're not a great team. Jaden Daniels' arm's broken in half. But yeah, Caleb Downs has changed my perspective about how high a safety should go, because I just think in the past, you wouldn't think a safety would go inside the top 20. NFL teams aren't investing that kind of draft capital in them. They just haven't historically. But Caleb Downs is just better than almost any safety I've scouted ever. So, yeah, I think that it's very plausible that he gets taken in the top 15, potentially the top 10.
Okay. So I'm sharing the Draft Professor simulator. So this shows the draft order. So
I will say at the last mock that I did on the site, the highest I've had him go was number 9 to the Bengals. That's where
and that was where I was going to go. So first of all, Taylor, I can see why you would have him go at 7 to the Commanders, because I can't come up with a scenario where he would go in the top 6. Right? From the standpoint of,
well, let's look at guys. Let's look at guys who the highest drafted safeties that I can remember. And interestingly enough, Taylor, you said about Kyle Hamilton. Both Kyle Hamilton, who was one of the top safeties I've ever watched, and Earl Thomas, another one of the top safeties I've ever watched. Both of those guys got drafted at number 14. So the highest drafted safety was like 35 years ago. Eric Turner, he was drafted number 2. Sean Taylor from the Commanders, Redskins, was number 5. Eric Berry was also number 5. And you had Jamal Adams picked 6th overall 8 years ago by the Jets.
Who's now
and then Dante Whitner was drafted 9th overall.
Right.
That was probably many decades ago. But here's where I was going to go with that. So Taylor, like I said, I completely see why you would have him go 7. I think top 6 is out. No matter which teams are picking top 6, there's going to be a player like Ruben Bain and Arvell Reese sitting there. Yep. And based upon positional importance, even if the grade isn't as high, I don't see top 6 for Caleb Downs. I would be, now granted the draft order isn't set. We're doing this podcast in November. Okay. So the Rams need defensive backs, right? So I can see the Commanders. I can see the Rams. Bengals definitely need a safety. The Dolphins definitely need a safety. The Cowboys definitely need a safety. Right.
Keep going. So, I give you one more.
Well, right. And then the Vikings. The Vikings would too.
Yep.
And Harrison Smith's getting up there. So, yeah.
Yep. So there's some teams here that need a safety. And then I liked how Taylor, I think you pointed out, Kyle Hamilton was a really good fit for the Ravens defense. Right. Mm-hmm. And my floor for him is Seattle at 27, because that's the Ravens' old Ravens' old defensive coordinators, the head coach. So Caleb Downs doesn't fall into 27.
No,
but
I think even the Cardinals are one of the only teams I see in there that really they don't necessarily need one. The Chiefs are another team that could use a safety. Like they let Juan Thornhill.
I think the Rams and the Chiefs need corner more so.
I would agree, because I think Trent McDuffie will be a trade candidate after the season for the Chiefs, because they can't extend him due to like the Mahomes contract, all of that, the Chris Jones contract. But yes, I agree. But their other safety right now is Shamari Connor, who is playing all right, but like put Caleb Downs in there with Brian Cook, and that's a pretty good secondary, right? And like they're gonna need help. I honestly don't. I can't see him getting past. I don't know what the order is gonna shake out, but last year, like Malachi Starks, for example, was the best safety. I think it's clear that Caleb Downs is a much better prospect than Malachi Starks. And Malachi Starks was pretty clear number 1 safety last year. And he went like 30th or 27th or something like that.
Right.
But it's also, I think, the way scheme goes, right? Because there was a lot of hype about Nick Eamon-Wari, right? And he went in, the 2nd round to the Seahawks. Yeah. And he's been amazing. I think scheme matters. Yeah, but like you said, I think, the final draft order in 7 or 8 weeks, whatever it is, he'll play it. But just looking at the screen now, I'm looking between 9 as a ceiling and 13 as a floor, because I don't know what happens with Brian Flores. I don't know if he gets a head coaching job while this, lawsuit is going on. But if he's still in Minnesota with that defense, he's going to be absolutely begging Kwesi for a guy like that. And we don't know who's going to be running Cincinnati in a few months, if it'll be Al Golden or not. But so right now it's all speculation.
Yeah.
But
I think the last 2 things that I want to say about Caleb Downs, number 1, the quarterback class has fallen off. So there are spots open, even as high as the top 5, where I don't think it's inconceivable for a team to fall in love with him, like whether it's 4 or 5. Like if, let's say, the Browns and Jets have successful tanks the rest of the season and they end up, and Tyler Shuck continues to play at an okay level, right? Then you're probably looking at just Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson being drafted inside the top 5, right? So then you have Ruben Bain, you have Arvell Reese. There's a couple other guys who are kind of, I won't say solidified, nothing solidified. We're in November. But you know what I mean? Like we're in
Well,
that
I don't realistically think you can expect to see an offensive tackle. I mean, my favorite is Spencer Fano. I don't know that I'm putting him in the top 5. I mean, I'm a little cautious about Jordan Tyson. Do you put, depending how your board falls, Mekhi Lemon or a Cardinal Tate, in the top 5. But I'll counter what you said, based on, my team, the Jets, right? You can see it behind you, right? They're failing miserably at a tank, right? I think they're probably going to win 1 or 2 more games, and maybe that's possible for Cleveland. I don't know about the Raiders. I really don't know if they've got another game or 2 in them.
Raiders Browns this Sunday.
I know.
Shadour's first
Very
career
interesting.
start is going to have
very draft
massive
important
tanking
game.
implications.
But the Jets have the ability, with another first this year, 2 seconds this year, and 3 next year to move. But let's say they finish with the 7th pick in the draft. That's a steep price. They need safeties bad. Mm-hmm. They have probably the worst safety group in the NFL. I would hate it, but I would understand it.
Yeah.
And from a draftable grade standpoint, here's what I'm hearing from the other podcasts. I actually think right now the first round grades are coming in higher than I expected. But at minimum, there's 2 interior offensive linemen with first round grades. Right. And then that's in addition to Francis Maui-Noah plus Spencer Fano. And then there's 5 offensive tackles, which include Maui-Noah with first round grades. So 7 offensive linemen with first round grades right now. And we haven't even finished the O-line group, but we're already at 7. Okay. So if you look at the defensive line group between defensive tackle and edge, there's upwards of 15 first round grades with those 2 positions combined. At linebacker, there's at least 2 first round grades that are coming in. At wide receiver, there's at least 5. Cornerback, we need to wait and see some measurements before people are going to start declaring a few players that are like in the Dillon Thieneman category from this podcast, where they're top 40 players, but are they a true first round grade, right? There's at least 1 running back that has a first round grade. So you start looking and you start adding that up and you say, what positions would I take over safety? And my answer is everybody except running back and tight end, right? Like if I'm building a team, safety is not one of the first 7 positions that I would fill, but that's my philosophy.
Yeah, no, right. I think that makes a ton of sense from starting from scratch, but you got to remember these teams aren't starting from scratch. So these teams might be, for example, like the Giants, where they have Kayvon Thibodeau, they have was it Brian
Abdul
Burner,
Carter,
Abdul Carter, like they have dudes everywhere, right, on the D line. So like they might just be like, we're missing just a back end guy. Get Caleb Downs to patrol the back end, and their defense is top 5 in the league. Or something like that.
I don't deny that at all.
Yeah, so
right?
That's a fair point.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I can see. So like some team
because you look at the Giants and now what's going on with Malik Dabers. Do you really want to take that shot with a Jordan Tyson? Where the medicals are going to be so important. I don't know.
I don't think Tyson. I think Tyson being high, like right now, Randall has Tate and Lemon higher than Tyson.
Same
and
here.
Then even Casey Concepcion and Elijah Surratt also have first round grades.
Yeah, so, I still have Tyson number 1. The injury concerns are injury concerns, but when he's on the field, he's number 1 in my opinion. I do think that, however, if I'm New York, Carnell Tate fits what they have with Malik Neighbors much better, much
Yep.
better than Lemon or
100%.
Tyson. And that's
Do
where
you know
the
what
team-
school Carnell Tate goes to, by the way?
Yeah, my last mock draft, I had 3 Ohio State guys in the top 7. So including 1 and 2. So Ohio State's going to get a lot of guys drafted. But Caleb Downs, the last thing I want to say about him, and this should be just the walk-off. He's so good that his brother Josh, who is in the NFL, changed his number to number 2 to match Caleb Downs.
I love that. That's a great way to close.
Yep, that happened. That's real.
So, Taylor, with that, why don't you tell everybody who you are, how they can find all of your other draft content?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's over at footballwithchaw.com. Chaw is a nickname I've gone by for a long time. I also go by Taylor, so you can call me either one. Twitter name is down below. And yeah, I'm just posting draft content all the time. I think I got my first ever video that did 10,000 views. And it's Jordan Tyson run blocking. Who would have thought?
Cool. Steve.
Yeah. Without me, you would have been 9,999. So you're welcome. Merry Christmas. Anyway, check out the new Twitter handle at Steve_NFL. We've finally dropped the SWFL, waiting on YouTube to reflect it. I am waiting to see if Twitter handles will approve my handle to just be at Steve, but I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, but that's where you can find me. The NFL content, draft content coming out on a weekly basis. Chaw and I do some stuff together too. And could always find me here almost every Thursday night. Next week, they're giving me the week off for Thanksgiving. But,
Yep. So, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So next week is Thanksgiving. There will be no podcast. And then, Steve, you are out on the 4th, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So on the 4th, Taylor and EJ at 9 p.m. Eastern will be doing slot players. So we're going to be covering Jalen Kilgore and Harold Perkins in the same podcast, talking about what attributes do you need a slot player to have, and not everybody plays the slot the same way. Taylor's going to bring the guys he likes. EJ's going to bring some of the guys that he's watched. And I really have no idea what the format of the show is going to be, other than, like EJ said, that's kind of how we wanted to cover it. Taylor was happy to help out. So that's what we're doing December 4th. December 11th at 7 p.m., Steve and Taylor will be doing their safety big boards on this show. So all safeties that they have graded in their top 150 are the players that we will cover. I definitely look forward to hearing how the first player we covered tonight, the safety from Miami, as to whether or not he grades out in the top 150 or not. So would love to hear more. So go ahead, find the Draft Professor Simulator and give it a try. It is a 100% interactive simulator. So the players that you pick in your mock draft are probably the players I'm going to see the simulator taking when I try my mock draft after you. And when you do that, and multiple people do that from every team, you get a mock draft experience that's much more random in rounds 3 through 7 than any simulator out there, guaranteed. So it's not your normal linear mock draft simulator. It is an idea I had 4 years ago, and that's what the Draft Professor Simulator is. So I wanted to make sure I plugged that. We will be using the Draft Professor Simulator on some podcasts shortly, but for Steve, Taylor, myself, for the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night, and we'll see you on a podcast again in 45 minutes.